The first thing I noticed about the abandoned leisure center was the smell, not the usual rot you get from a place sealed up for years. This was old chlorine turned sour, like a swimming pool that refused to accept it was dead. It drifted out through cracked vents and broken windows and hung over the car park in thin chemical breaths. I'd driven past it 100 times. Everyone had. A low concrete block outside town, a faded sign still promising "Fun for all ages" in peeling letters. The council closed it after structural concerns. Then someone set a fire in the changing rooms. Then it became one of those places you point at while talking about anything else. 2 weeks ago, Declan Shaw went missing. Declan was the kind of lad who always had a new dare. He climbed the quarry fence. He broke into the empty primary school for a laugh. He posted videos of himself in places held together by rust and bad decisions. If anyone was going to end up in the leisure center, it was him. What made it worse was the voice message. It landed in our group chat at 1:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. One audio clip. No text. Declan's number. Everyone assumed it was a prank, because that's what we do when something scares us. We try to make it small. We hit play. At first, it was just breathing and distant dripping. Then Declan's voice, low and tight. "Boys," he whispered, like he was afraid of the air. "I'm here. I'm in the pool. It's not empty." A pause. Something shifted in the background. A soft slosh, like a foot lifting out of water. "I can hear them," Declan said. "They're counting." Then came a sound that made my stomach turn. Not a voice. More like a chorus of wet clicks and little sharp taps. The way teeth sound when you're cold and trying not to shake. It rose and fell in a rhythm that felt too neat to be random. "I'm going to turn the torch off," Declan breathed. If it sees light, it moves. I think it's blind, but it knows. If you come, don't bring..." The message cut off. The next day, the police searched the building. They said the doors were chained. They said the windows were boarded. They said there was no sign anyone had been inside for months. Declan wasn't there. And then the story twisted itself into something you could live with. People said the voice message was faked. People said Declan ran off. People said anything that meant the leisure center could stay what it was. A dead building you could drive past without feeling watched. But I couldn't shake one detail. Right before Declan spoke, there was a tiny metallic clink, like a coin dropped into a vending machine. Then, faintly, water rippling. I'd worked summers at that place before it closed. I knew that sound. It was the token slot at the old turnstile. The pool entrance had a gate you couldn't push through without feeding it a token. The council removed the machine years ago, but the turnstile was still there. Heavy. Stubborn. It didn't move unless it got paid. Declan's message wasn't from somewhere deep inside. It was from the point where you enter, which meant something had kept the mechanism working. 5 nights after the first message, I woke up to a new notification. Another audio clip. Declan's number. I sat up in bed, phone trembling in my hand, and hit play. At first, I thought it was silent. Then I realized it wasn't silence. It was distance, like someone had shoved the whole world down a corridor and closed a door. There was water again, slow movement, like something heavy turning under the surface. Then a voice that wasn't Declan's, too thin to be one person, too layered to be a crowd. 3, it whispered. A pause. 2. Another pause. Longer. 1. The audio ended. No breathing, no explanation. Just the count, like the last numbers before a drop. I stared at the phone until my eyes burned. Then I did the worst thing you can do with fear. I started planning. All day after that, everything felt like it was waiting for the next number. The kettle clicked off and I jumped. The microwave beeped and my heart kicked. In class, the second hand on the clock sounded louder than the teacher. That night I tried to sleep, but every time I drifted off, I'd see the deep end of the pool, black and still, with a line of tiles disappearing under the surface like a mouth holding its tongue. Somewhere down there, something patient was making space in its head for one more count. By midnight, my nerves were shredded. By 1, I'd accepted the truth I'd been dodging since Tuesday. If Declan was still alive, he wasn't going to be for long. And if that count reached 0 again, it might not stop at Declan. I didn't want to go in alone. I'm not that stupid. But I also knew if I told anyone, they'd either laugh or panic, and both would get someone hurt. I needed one person who could keep their head when a story stopped being a story. That left Megan O'Hara. Megan lived 3 streets away from Declan. They'd been friends since they were kids, the kind that show up in each other's family photos without anyone remembering when it started. Since he vanished, she'd been the one standing beside his mum at vigils, handing out tea to strangers, staring down anyone who tried to turn it into gossip. She didn't cry in public. She didn't shout. She just watched, like she was storing every detail for later. When I messaged her, I expected a block. Instead, "Where are you?" "In my room," I typed. "Just got another message from his number." "Play it again," she replied. "Screen record it. Don't trust it to stay." I did, fumbling through menus with fingers that wouldn't cooperate. When it was saved, she sent one more line. "I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, she was in my doorway, soaked from misty rain, hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes sharp like she'd sharpened them on worry. She didn't take her coat off. She didn't sit down. "Show me." I played both clips, Declan whispering about the pool, the strange voice counting down. Megan listened without flinching, but when the 1 hit, she exhaled slowly through her nose like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. "That's not a prank," she said. "I know." She stared past me at my dark window. "Declan told me something the week before he disappeared," she said quietly. "He said there's a part of the building the council never opened to the public. He found an access hatch behind the lockers." My stomach dropped. "What part?" "The old therapy pool," Megan said. "Warm water, smaller, separate filters. They shut it first, years ago. He said when he looked in, it wasn't empty." I sat down because my legs decided they didn't want to be involved. "We should tell the police." "We did." Megan's voice stayed level, but her jaw tightened. "They laughed. They asked if he was on drugs. They said they searched every room." She leaned closer, lowering her voice like the walls might pass messages. "They didn't search the water." For a second I wanted to argue. Water doesn't hide someone for 2 weeks. Water doesn't keep phones charged. Water doesn't send audio clips that sound like a throat full of whispering teeth. But I'd already crossed the line where sense mattered. The messages existed. Declan's number existed. And somewhere in that dead building, something was counting. "What do we do?" I asked. "We go tonight," Megan said, "before it sends another message, before it realizes you're listening." "Tonight?" My voice came out thin. "Tonight," she repeated. "And we do it right. No live streams, no shouting, no flash." "No flash?" Megan nodded at the first audio. "Declan said it moves if it sees light." She started listing gear like she'd been rehearsing it. Headlamps with red filters, spare batteries, rope, a long pole, first aid kit, towels, and, strangest of all, a pocket full of coins. "Why coins?" I asked. "If it wants to be paid," she said, "we pay." I barked out one humorless laugh. "This is insane." Megan's expression didn't change. "Declan's missing," she said. "That's not insane. That's just what happened." There are moments where you can feel your life split into 2 paths. One where you go back to sleep and pretend you never heard the count. One where you step into the dark and accept you might not come out the same. I looked at Megan, soaked, furious, steady, and thought of Declan's whisper. "I'm in the pool. It's not empty." "Right," I said. "Let's go." We left just after 2 a.m., when the streets were empty and the rain had softened into mist. Megan drove. No music. The wipers went back and forth like a metronome. Every time the headlights swept across a road sign, I half expected to see numbers painted on it. The leisure center squatted at the edge of town, hunched and quiet. The car park was a black mirror of puddles. The faded sign hung crooked, one bolt missing, and when the wind pushed it, it creaked like something old trying to breathe. Megan killed the engine. The silence that followed felt thick. We sat for a second, listening. No birds, no cars, just the distant hiss of wet trees and the soft drip of water somewhere inside the building. Megan handed me the red filter headlamp. Only turn it on if you have to, she whispered. Then she opened the door, and the air outside tasted like rust and chlorine. We crossed the car park fast, shoes splashing. The main entrance was chained, just like the police said. But behind the building, hidden by bins and an overgrown hedge, there was a service door I'd used when I worked summers here. The lock had been forced. Metal bent, wood splintered, then covered with boards like that fixed anything. Megan pried the boards away with a crowbar. You came prepared, I breathed. I came angry, she said. The door opened with a soft sigh that sounded too much like relief. Inside, darkness swallowed us. The smell hit harder. Chlorine, damp, and something faintly sweet, like mold feeding on old sugar. Megan pulled the door shut. The click of the latch felt loud. We stood still. Then, deeper in the building, something answered. A wet click, then another, then, like a whisper carried through water. 4! Megan's head snapped toward it. It's counting, I whispered. Or it's counting us, she whispered back. We moved down the service corridor, one hand on the wall. The tiles underfoot were slick. Ahead, the staff door opened into the main pool hall. I eased the push bar down. The door swung inward with a slow groan. The pool hall was a cavern of shadow. Streetlight seeped through high windows, outlining diving boards, metal ladders, stacks of chairs. The water should have been drained when it closed. It wasn't. A full black surface lay still, reflecting window frames like a broken mirror. Megan stopped. That's not right. It wasn't like that when I worked here, I whispered. On the far side stood the old turnstile, a waist-high gate with a token slot on top. Behind it, the corridor to the changing rooms, and further back, the therapy pool. Megan pulled a coin from her pocket. You said the sound in the message. I know. The wet clicking started again, somewhere behind a wall, soft and eager. Megan dropped the coin. Clink. The turnstile shuddered, then unlocked with a heavy, oiled clack, like someone had serviced it recently. Megan pushed through, smooth as anything. I followed, feeding it another coin. Clink, clack. The moment I stepped past, the air changed. Colder, wetter, like crossing a line. Beyond, the corridor narrowed, lined with lockers ripped open long ago. The floor was littered with damp paper and forgotten flip-flops. The sweet rot smell thickened under the chlorine. Halfway down, my foot nudged something soft. I crouched and felt it. A towel, wet, flexible, recent. It smelled of fresh chlorine. Megan took it from me. Someone's been here, she whispered. A tiny metallic clink echoed from behind us. We both turned. The turnstile arm rotated on its own, just a fraction, like something invisible brushed past. Then, the layered whisper returned. 5, it said, pleased. Megan went pale. It knows we paid. And it wants more, I whispered. We didn't speak after that. We just kept moving, deeper, toward the part of the building no one admitted existed, toward the water that wasn't supposed to be there. The changing rooms were worse than I remembered. Benches overturned, mirrors smashed, damp paint running down the walls like tears. Megan guided us past the showers, shoes squelching on the slick tiles. Behind the last row of lockers, Megan stopped and tapped a panel. Hollow, she whispered. One locker door sat slightly misaligned, hinge bolts newer than the others. Megan slid the crowbar into the seam and pried. The door popped open with a complaint of metal. Behind it was a square opening cut into the tiled wall, just big enough to squeeze through, edged with flaking sealant. Megan turned to me. Red light, she mouthed. We clicked our headlamps on low, the red filters turning the world into a bruise. The opening swallowed that glow. I went first. The tile edges were damp and slick, and the passage beyond was lined with pipes. A drop of water hit the back of my neck, and I flinched hard, elbowing a pipe. The clang rang down the crawl space like a bell. Far ahead, wet clicking answered. Faster now, excited. I forced myself forward. The passage sloped down, stinking of rust and warm, stagnant water. My knees slid on slime. Megan followed close, breathing steady. After 10 meters, the passage widened into a low service room. A door stood ahead, half open, with a faded sign bolted to it. Therapy pool. Staff only from the gap beyond. We heard it again. Water moving, slow and heavy, like something large rolling over in its sleep. And under that, so faint it barely existed, a whisper, starting another count. The therapy pool door hung half open, like someone started to close it and change their mind. Megan eased it wider. The hinges didn't squeal. They moved smoothly like they'd been used. The air beyond was warm. That made no sense. The building had no power, but the warmth rolled out in a damp wave that fogged my glasses and turned my skin clammy. We slipped inside. The room was smaller than the main hall. Lower ceiling, pale tiles, privacy windows painted over from the outside. In our red headlamps, everything looked bruised. The pool sat in the center like a sunken mouth, and it was full. Not clean, not clear. A faint, milky haze drifted under the surface, and the water moved in slow circles like something underneath kept turning over, never settling. Beside the steps into the water was a small metal box mounted to the wall. A token reader, narrow slot, tiny window. Megan took one step toward it and lifted her headlamp a fraction. The wet clicking erupted, behind tiles, in vents, under the pool lip. Dozens of sharp taps, furious and eager. Megan froze and lowered the light. Immediately, the clicking softened into a patient rhythm. "It hates light," I whispered. "It hates being seen," Megan whispered back. In the little window, a mechanical counter showed a number. 6. A layered whisper rose from the pool, close enough to feel on my ear. "Pay." Megan fed a coin into the slot. Clink. The counter clicked from 6 to 5. My stomach flipped. "That's backwards." Megan fed another. Clink. 5 to 4. The water rippled toward the steps. I forced the question out. "What happens at 0? The clicking stopped dead. Silence, sudden and complete. Then a slow inhale from the pool, like the room itself took a breath. "Open," the whisper said, delighted. Something rolled beneath the surface, long, pale, then sank again without breaking the water. For a split second, it looked less like a body and more like the pool trying to stand up. Megan's eyes darted to the far corner, a staff door half hidden behind stacked plastic chairs. Under it, a thin line of white light leaked onto the tiles. Someone had a torch on in there. "Declan," Megan mouthed. We took 2 steps toward the door, and the whisper hissed, sharp. "No." The water stirred faster. A small wave slapped the edge, wetting the tiles near our shoes. Megan backed up, understanding something I didn't. "It's a gate," she murmured. We paid a move. She dropped 2 coins in quick succession. Clink, clink, 4 to 3. The room seemed to relax. The water slowed. We moved again, headlamps aimed at the floor. At the door, I pressed my ear to the wood, breathing. Rough, human. I pushed the door a crack. A beam of white light stabbed out. Instant chaos. The clicking exploded again, savage now, like 1,000 teeth. "Off!" Megan snapped. I reached through and slapped at the torch. The light died. The clicking dulled, still angry but controlled. In the dark, a voice rasped, weak and cracked. "Who's there?" "Declan." Megan shoved the door open. Red light spilled into a cramped storage room. Declan sat on the floor with his back against a shelf, knees pulled to his chest. His face was gray, lips split, eyes too big. His hair was wet. His hands shook so hard he couldn't keep them still. When he saw Megan, he made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You came." "We got your messages," Megan said, voice steady but tight. Declan stared past us at the pool door like it could see through walls. "Don't look at it," he whispered. "Don't shine anything. It counts. It counts everything." "We know," I said. "What is it?" Declan's gaze flicked to mine. "It's the pool," he whispered. "But it's not. It's like something moved in and started wearing it." A wet click sounded from the other side of the door. Declan flinched so hard he banged his head on the shelf. "How many coins do you have?" he whispered. Megan lifted the pouch. "Enough." Declan shook his head. "Never enough." He grabbed Megan's wrist with surprising strength. "It doesn't want money," he whispered. It wants the sound, the decision, the act of paying. Every time you drop one in, you agree to the count. What count? I asked. Declan's eyes filled, but no tears fell. It counts chances, he whispered. It counts exits. It counts people. Outside, the layered whisper slid under the door, patient as a tide. 3, it said. Megan's face went hard. It knows we're here. Declan nodded, trembling. If it reaches 0, he whispered, it opens the wrong way. My stomach sank. Because we'd paid it down. We'd helped it get closer. Declan tried to stand and failed. Megan hooked an arm under his shoulder and hauled him up anyway. He weighed less than he should have, like the building had been taking pieces. Outside the storage room door, the clicking started again. Soft, pleased. The whisper slid under the gap like damp breath. 2, it said. Megan's eyes snapped to mine. It's counting down without us. Declan's voice came thin. It heard you talk about leaving. How do we stop it? I whispered. Declan pointed at a square panel half hidden behind the shelves. A rusted handle, a faded sticker. Maintenance. There's a manual valve, he rasped. For the therapy pool. Old system. No power needed. Make it change. Megan yanked the panel open. Cold air breathed out. Inside was a wheel valve connected to a thick pipe that disappeared into the wall. She grabbed the wheel and turned. Metal groaned. The whisper sharpened, thrilled, and furious at once. 1, it breathed. The pool room door thumped hard, like a fist against wood. The clicking went wild, fast, frantic, a whole choir of teeth. Megan spun the wheel again, harder. Something clanked in the wall. Then the therapy pool answered with a roar. Water started draining, violent, sudden, a spiraling pull. The warmth in the air died as the level dropped. From the other side of the door, the layered voice broke into a strained hiss. No! The handle on our door twitched, testing. Move, Megan mouthed. We cracked the door and kept our red lights pointed down. The pool water was collapsing into the drain, and in the middle of that whirl, something tried to rise with it. A shape broke the surface, slick, pale, then dragged itself toward the steps with a scraping sound, like tiles being ripped up. In the red glow, I caught a glimpse of grout lines bending where joints shouldn't be, and a dark drain hole in the center like a mouth that couldn't close. We didn't stare. We ran. Back through the corridor. Into the hatch behind the lockers. Declan first, Megan second, me last. The locker door behind us shuddered once, like something leaned its weight against it, listening. We burst out into the changing room and half-carried Declan toward the pool hall. The main pool, big one, had started to ripple now, like it was waking up too. At the turnstile, the token slot gleamed faintly, waiting. The whisper came again, closer, impatient. Pay! Megan's hand tightened on the pouch of coins. I remembered Declan's words. The act of paying was the yes, so I didn't give it a coin. I shoved my house key into the slot and forced it until the metal jammed. The turnstile shuddered. The mechanism inside started grinding, angry, stuck, trying to accept a payment that wasn't a payment. Megan wedged her crowbar into the arm and heaved. The gate jerked, resisted, then gave enough for her to slip through. I hauled Declan after her. The arm squealed like it hated being forced. Then, clack. Something snapped. The turnstile went limp. The wet clicking cut off mid-beat, like a mouth slammed shut. We didn't wait to see what that meant. We stumbled across the hall and out the service door into cold night air. The smell of chlorine finally thinned. Megan drove straight to the police station. Declan made it inside alive. An ambulance came. Questions came. Declan didn't answer much, just kept whispering, "Don't pay. Don't pay." Police returned at dawn. They found the service door open, the turnstile broken, the therapy pool room bone dry, tiles cracked around the drain like something had tried to climb out while it was empty. They didn't find a phone. They didn't find coins in the reader. They didn't find anything they could write down in a report. Declan stopped going near water. Megan wouldn't even stand in rain without a hood. And me, some nights when the house is quiet, I hear soft clicking in the pipes behind my walls, patient as a drip. Once, At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A new audio clip. No text. Unknown number. I didn't want to play it. I really didn't. But my thumb moved anyway, like a turnstile arm that had learned the motion. A thin, layered whisper filled my room. 6, it said, calm as a tide. And somewhere far away, I swear I smelled chlorine. My house key never worked again. The metal warped from the jam, teeth bent like they'd been chewed. I kept it anyway, on my key ring, a useless little reminder that sometimes the only way out is to break the rules without agreeing to them. And every time I pass the leisure center now, I catch myself listening, just for a second, for a number starting over behind the walls.